Welcome to Slow Pour Whiskey. My name is Trent, and I'm here to talk to you today about Lagg Kilmory edition. So yeah, I have a pour in here. I've been letting it sit for a little bit. It is a young spirit, so I want to give it some time in the glass before we start smelling and tasting it. I poured it maybe 10 minutes ago or so. So the general rule is you want to let your whiskey aerate a little bit, sit in the glass, a minute per year old it is. However, this is the Kilmory edition from Lagg, which Lagg Distillery has only been around for like 3 to 4 years. I don't see exactly. It opened in 2019. And it's actually a distillery that was sent out from Lochranza, which is the distillery that produces Isle of Arran. And Arran used to make peated Scotch, but they stopped and instead opened up another distillery on the Isle of Arran. So Lagg is, I don't know if it's down the street, but it's on the Isle of Arran alongside Arran, the Lochranza Distillery. So Lagg is basically their peated expression, but it comes from a distillery that is specifically focusing on peated Scotches. I picked this up in Chicagoland. It is not a cheap bottle. To be quite frank, it's only 700 milliliters. And for a 3 to 4 year old whiskey, it's at 46%, which is great. But it's not like a cask strength. It's not even a batch strength. It's a solid representation, but you would expect to pay a little bit more if you were getting more alcohol than just the standard of 46. Unfortunately, 46 isn't the standard. A lot of distilleries bottle at much weaker strengths, unfortunately. 46 should be the standard. And for those of us that drink whiskey to enjoy it and to taste it and to nose it and to spend time with it and get to know it, 46 is the minimum for a genuine representation of the whiskey. So this isn't high strength. This is not an old whiskey. It's actually very young. It's 3 to 4 years or so. And it seems like what Lagg did was they decided, instead of trying to act and like cover it up and act like it was older than it is by putting a bunch of different cask influences in there or doing things to try to make it seem older, they're just like leaning into the roughness, the freshness, the punchiness of a young whiskey. So at 3 to 4 years, it's quite a punch in the face. It is a peated Scotch. It is probably strongly peated. I'm actually not sure off the top of my head what the parts per million on the peat is, but it is pretty peated. But it's got a really unique smokiness to it, really unique character. And I will wait some time before I buy another bottle because of the price. But I'm definitely interested in the other version that they have, which I think is the Corey Cravey. I think that sounds right, Corey Cravey, that has some sherry cask in there as well. I might be interested in trying that one. But yeah, for the price, this was probably in my market, probably $70 or something like that, which is a lot of money for a 4-year-old whiskey. And so, it's up to you what you spend your money on, but I will be hesitant to buy another bottle of whiskey that's this young at that price. But let me tell you, this is quite delicious. Here's my still. This is for YouTube. This is quite a delicious bottle of whiskey. So yeah, let's go ahead and get it on the nose. I've been letting it sit for a while, letting it air out. What I've noticed about this is that, I guess you could probably want to look at I'm not sure which hand I should do. Let's do this one because I got to try and cover my face. You can see that's the color. and it's got some legs in there, but it's definitely a natural color. There's no color added in this. Non-chill filtered, unchill filtered, amazing, and 46% alcohol by volume, which is great. And yeah, let's get it on the nose. It is like, I don't know how to explain it. This is not like peated Scotch I've had before. There's a range of peat in Scotch. There is everything from like medicinal, medicine, herbal, like Lafroig style peat that is like a punch in the face of medicine and iodine and, like very sharp in that regard. And then on the other end, there's like a peated barbecue note, like meats, like a meaty kind of peat that smells like barbecue, like ribs, like stuff on the grill. And then right down the middle, there's like a campfire peat. And that's just like if you're sitting at a campfire and that kind of a smoke coming off of a campfire. And this is kind of strange. It's not necessarily meaty. It's not medicinal in the way that Lafroig is, but it's not a normal campfire. To me, this smells like, I don't know how to say it other than to say it smells like a bog. The peatiness of this Scotch doesn't smell like typical, definitely not Isla peat. We'll just put it that way. This smells like, I don't know, if you were to like walk into Shrek's bog, into his swamp. But it didn't smell bad like ogre, but it smelled like, moss and tree. And there's a fire going on in this muddy bog. But it's like a wet, mossy fire. And it's just very different than a lot of other peats. It's also got like a thick viscosity to it. There's an oiliness to it. There's a little bit of a sweetness in here too, but not like nearly, not even close to like over the top. But there's a little bit of a sweetness. It's damp and there's like vegetation, like moss, like burning peat, actually, not like dry logs on a fire. There's a little bit of like hay. Like you're throwing just vegetation on a fire in a bog. But there's some like charred like pine, not really pineapple, but like some kind of citrus, charred. Like if you were to put like citrus on a campfire and just like let it get charred, there's some of that in there. There's some green apple in here. It smells very good. It's definitely not. It's strong. It's potent. It's not potent in terms of alcohol. Actually, for a 4-year-old, 3-4. Excuse me, 3-4, maybe 5-year-old whiskey. This doesn't have a punch in the face of alcohol, but it's got a good kick of smell, a good aroma, a good nose coming off of it that's strong. Maybe some like lemon or some like citrus rind in there. There's an oiliness to it too. Let's give it a taste. I haven't added any water. I'll add some water in a minute, but let's get the first impressions. Just a tiny little bit on the tongue to kind of see what happens. Yeah. So, I believe it is just, yes, it's 100% ex-bourbon barrel. And that lets the peat and the distillate shine. There's like white pepper in there, but it's dirty. It's got this ruggedness to the peat, and it's got this oiliness in flavor and texture. I'm going to add a tiny little bit of water so we can let it set while we talk. I'm just going to do like, I don't know, like a little bit right there. Give it a little swirl just to let the water open up. Don't be afraid to add water to your whiskey. Don't listen to people who tell you that it's not good. Don't listen to people that tell you how you have to drink your whiskey. There's nothing wrong with drinking whiskey on the rocks. There's nothing wrong with drinking like a highball and adding stuff into whiskey. One of my favorite drinks of all time is actually a Godfather, which is Disaronno and Scotch, like an Italian almond liqueur. Yeah, like there's no wrong way to drink it. And I find that adding a little bit of water just opens it up a little bit more so you get a little bit more of what's going on, especially since I'm not drinking to get drunk. Drink responsibly, drink with intention, drink. This channel is called the slow pour whiskey, because it's about taking your time with the whiskey. A beautiful thing about whiskey is that it takes time for it to be made. It's an element, it's part of the production process. And the more time you spend with it, so the more time that the whiskey sits, like the more character it gets, the better it becomes, the more integrated and the more things change with time. But then the more time you spend drinking it, the more it changes. The longer it sits in the glass, the more it will open up. If you add water to it, it will open up. The more time you spend with something like a relationship, you get more out of it. I bought this bottle several months ago at this point, and I have been sitting on it. I've had a fair amount of it, but I'm not halfway for sure. And I'm just kind of slowly taking my time with it, partially because it's a little too expensive for a 4-year-old whiskey, 3-year-old whiskey. But also because I want to let it sit, and it will sit with some air in the bottle and open up a little bit more. And over time, whiskey changes, and over time we change, and our tastes change. Our ability to pick out pieces change. The more whiskey we drink, the more we are intentional about our drinking and paying attention and smelling and nosing and tasting it. Our palates change, and we begin to appreciate different things about different whiskeys. And sometimes you have a whiskey that you don't like at first, but then you come back to it months later, years later, and you're like, wow, did this change? It may have changed, but also we change and our palates change. And so if there's a whiskey you don't like at first, don't completely write it off. Try it again later. Don't be afraid to retry things you didn't like. Let's go back for a second smell here. Yeah, so that brings out some of the earthiness, and there's a little bit of medicinal coming through now. There's like a slight slate or like mineralness in here too. The peat is starting to kind of fade into the background now, and now I'm getting a little bit more of the other smells, other aromas in here. It's not incredibly complex, but it's a very strong punch in the direction it's going. Yeah, there's like a rough oiliness coming out more now, and a little bit, just a touch of a funkiness. Let's try another taste on the palate. Second taste here. Yeah, it's got like engine oil, like a strong punch of engine oil. It's another one of those things that you get across the palate, and you might think it's weird. You don't want to drink engine oil. No one wants to drink engine oil, but it tastes good. It tastes like engine oil, and it tastes good, which is weird. But that's how Scotch works. Yeah, there's a little bit of like licorice in there. It's very rugged. It's got a little bit of like a tropical fruit. Maybe it is pineapple that's like grilled in there too. It's also got this Maritime thing going on. It's salty. It's a savory Scotch, which I love. Savory Scotch. I am a big. I don't mind sweets sometimes, so I'm definitely more of a savory person. And one of the things I love about Scotch is that it can be savory and salty and umami. And this has a salty brininess to it. It's different than like. It's different than like a Kilhoman. I've got some Kilhoman back here. It's different than Kilhoman. It's a little bit different than Ardbeg. Both of those have like a mineralness that this doesn't have as much of. But this has like a salty brininess going on. Let's try another taste here. Yeah, there's sweet, like sweet grilled pineapple or grilled citrus going on here. It's kind of creamy, like vanilla. There's some vanilla, and it's got a creaminess, kind of like cream soda ish almost, a little bit. And kind of a tropicalness to it. But it's like covered in this damp cloud of peat bog, like a peat bog, a bog with peat, and there's a fire there, and it's just like, there's some haze and some fog in the air, and there's like trees that are like, weeping willows around you, and the place that you could like take a step off and think it's solid ground and like fall through the bog, like, and disappear forever. This is definitely not a it's not hiding the fact it's young. So if you shy away from young whiskeys, this may not be for you. If you shy away from peated scotches, this is definitely not for you. I wouldn't call this a peat monster, at least from my opinion. Especially because I think it's not about the peat. It's about, there's more going on. Again, it's not the most, it's still young. So I suspect this at 10 years would be remarkable. I suspect this at 13 years would be incredible. I'm really curious to see what they do with it. And I'm hoping that Lagg is not planning on raising the price as it gets older. I suspect and I hope, because Lagg is a part of the Lochranza family, the Arran family, that really are trying to do things the right way, it seems. They seem to be really taking care of people that care about whiskey. They don't just want to get drunk. And again, drinking whiskey is about spending time with it. It's about the slow pour. That's the point. Spending time with it. And it seems like that Arran and Lochranza, and it seems like they're in a family that cares about people like you and me that want to enjoy whiskey, not just consume whiskey. So I hope that their prices right now are the prices that this will remain as it grows in age. They could charge less for it now, and they probably should. It should be $10 cheaper. It could be $15 cheaper, but I apparently was willing to pay for it. I've heard very good things about I think it's Corey Cravey. Yeah, I've heard really great things about that. And that one is even more expensive than this. And it's still a 3 to 4 year old whiskey. I'm hoping that they're using this money, charging the same price that they would charge for a 10-year-old now, so that they have, the cash flow and the ability to continue to produce quality spirits. Because at 3 years old, this is a remarkable Scotch whiskey. So if you have the money and you're interested in something that is potent and strong, I would definitely encourage you to try this Lagg Kilmory edition. I think it is a phenomenal Scotch, especially for 4 years old. If you are looking for something that is super well-rounded, if you are looking for something that is, it's very complex, if you're looking for something that is smooth and refined, this is not for you. This is a dirty profile, kind of the way that, what's another dirty profile? Craig Alecky 13 is very famous for having a messy dirtiness to it. And this definitely has that. Unlike the the Craigellachie 13, this is peated, and so that adds another level, another layer in there. I just think this is phenomenal. I think the fact that it is unchill filtered lets this shine. This would not be a great whiskey if it was filtered, if it was chill filtered. They are leaning into the roughness of this, and I think that Lagg will become a major player in the world of Scotch whiskey because of them leaning into what makes their spirit and their whiskey unique, which is not to try and like cover it with casks, not to do stuff to tone it down, but really like leaning into the uniqueness of it. Let's do one last taste, and then I'll give it a score. Cheers. I think there's a liminess, like a sweet lime in the background, and that cream. There is like a creaminess, like cream soda, briny, and there's a little bit of the iodine in there, a little bit of medicinal in there, but it's definitely like charred citrus on a fire of peat, on a damp fire with damp wood and damp peat in a bog, and there's this creamy, oily waxiness. There's a little bit of waxiness, definitely some oiliness in here. So yeah, I would very much approve to you Lagg, specifically the Kilmory edition. Go out and try the Corey Cravey. That seems to be even more popular. That has really good reviews from people. I'd like to try that at some point if you have the money to spend. If you're looking to spend money on something that's a little bit more fully fleshed out, this is not that. This is not a fully fleshed out whiskey yet. But I will be on the lookout for this as the distillery comes of age and begins to have older spirits that have been sitting long enough to really have some age behind them. So 7 years or so from now, I'm going to be having my eye on Lagg. So that's it from me. I appreciate you watching this video. Please subscribe, please like, please comment, ask me questions. I have been paying attention to Scotch whiskey for a few years now, and I'm looking to interact with people and grow in my knowledge and share what I've learned and share experiences with people. The Slow Pour is about taking time with whiskey, often in community, and so the more I can interact with you, the better. Thank you so much. Oh, score. You can tell I'm still new at this. I would say this is a solid, I would say 86 out of 100. I would say the potential here is there's an exceeding amount of potential here. I'll give it an 86 for now. I think it's young. You could say 87 if you really like that young spirit. But I think this is a phenomenal whiskey at 86. So thank you so much. Thanks for watching, and cheers. See you next time.